parts of Uganda, individuals and communities often away from the glare of tourism and publicity are driven by a passion to preserve their local cultural artifacts in form of what one may call a museum. These remarkable people have taken the initiative to start up their own museums, often with limited external support, if any. Some organizations, NGOs, universities, and small groups have followed suit. We first go to Kagadi in Bunyoro, Western Uganda. Within the school and university compound of the Uganda Rural Development and Training Program, and next to its community radio, is the Cultural Assets Center.
In the past, especially in the advent of religion, all the artifacts were burnt and they said they were satanic. But we felt there were values that we were losing and that were being destroyed.
The Cultural Asset Center is to interrogate our thought system and see in the transition of our development, what did we lose out? What can we revisit? What can we say that we owned? So the younger generation, when they visit us, to us that is the conversation. It's not to look at the artifacts, it is to look at the science, to look at the technology behind those artifacts.
I would give an example. When you look at a pot, there are some, we would call it design, so that as you pull the pot out of the water, it would be difficult for you to pull it out without having grip on the pot. So what we looked at as design was friction, which is scientific. We have helped to cultivate among the people or the nature the desire to preserve artifacts. We received several calls.
For example, I donated a gramophone, the first musical instrument. And I also donated some spears. Even this chair, how it is decorated, it is I who did it.
The community contributes the artifacts to the museum. Then wisdom. This hut you can see is constructed by community members who have the knowledge, who have the information about how their huts can be constructed, and they have come to participate.
Some of the artifacts actually we are buying rather than getting them free. And to me, I'm not complaining. It's the people now understanding there is value.
There is a desire to reach very many people, and the center is linked to its community radio.
The radio adds voice or amplifies the efforts of preservation and reaches a wider community.
If you enter into the studio, production studio, you will see a glass connecting the museum, which is a community asset, to the community radio. That is ideological.
We reach out to schools. We have schools, especially young pupils, who did not have the opportunity to interact with the elderly. We also reach out to secondary schools. We reach out to university students and researchers. We are also reaching out to the people, ordinary people, who have not had the opportunity to have these artifacts. We have been able to establish heritage education in schools or heritage education clubs.
Our Cultural Asset Center is an encyclopedia. There's a lot of wisdom, a lot of information. You look at a tool, you look at an artifact, and it tells so many stories. Everything we did is like we are backward. Everything we did is like unsophisticated. Everything we did was like... So we started glorifying other sciences and lost ours. So our contribution is self-discovery, self-confidence, and then our aspirations will be taken care of. And it will be self-generating. It will not be externally motivated.
Our next stop is across the Nile. The ancient chiefdoms of Busoga have long been dominated by the British colonialists and by their deputies from Buganda. Until recently, even the language of the Basoga was under threat. In Jinja, the Culture Research Center has set out to salvage as many artifacts of the Basoga culture as possible.
We have a number of components when you come to this cultural museum. You'll find the one showing the farming life of the people, the one showing the fishing, which was the way of surviving in order to get what to eat. When you come to the beddings, I think we are cutting across a number of aspects of the Busoga culture. We have a number of objects in this museum. But then the one which I can single out, we have a wooden bowl, which I say that it's basically meant for the chiefs, given their status in society, where they are not supposed to eat from bowels made out of clay, which people consider the soil. And how can a big man eat from the soil? So I find that it is carved. This one has 2 apartments or 2 divisions. Like a chief could be served this way, they put food, and this way is for sauce, such that it is 2 in 1. Down near the base, this was the base where they could put it to stand for the chief to eat.
Our mission statement is to preserve and promote our God-given, ancestral, and life-giving cultural heritage. That is the first part of it. And the second part is and to inculcate a deep sense of pride and belonging among the Basoga.
So we basically serve the young generation, people who maybe grow up in other places and have not had a chance to see some of these artifacts, and also students and researchers who come and want to write more about the culture of the Basoga. Last year we had an exhibition in one of the schools, and the students themselves, because we trained them to explain to the visitors who were to come and look at these artifacts, how these things were. But it really arose a lot of interest among the students, and they were really impressed.
We are now working hand in hand with the schools so that when they are on their excursion tours, it's not a question of going just to the source of the Nile, going to the Gali Falls, maybe visiting grain milling company in Jinja or Nairo breweries, but that cultural center can also be part of the visits when they come to Jinja. In Busoga, there was no documentation of our culture. And so then we said we need to document our culture and set up a library which can as well act as a museum where people can come and access such information. So in this way, we are addressing the needs of the Basoga.
Because if it is even advertised and there is plenty that one can look at, it will give a cause for the public to come in and see exactly what are these people talking about the museum. How have we evolved to become the Basoga that we are? What has contributed to our competence?
There is a lot of appreciation of the Chisoga culture right now. Both as we sensitize other people and other people appreciating the Basoga, that they have a culture and it is worth documenting, it is worth reckoning on with. And this is the harmony we are having, because originally maybe some other people would look down upon the Basoga.
In Bunyoro, we visit the Nyamiaro, the museum that houses the regalia of this ancient kingdom, the Kingdom of the Banyoro, famed for their illustrious rulers, including Kavalega, who so long fought the British invasion in the 19th century.
Nyamiaro is a total of valuable regalia, a lot of which is still in use. But this museum is meant to keep them in display so that people come and instead of finding the regalia in stores, they find it in a place that is accessible at the entrance of the palace.
We don't know when this regalia started to be used. but it goes a long, long way back in history, because some of the artifacts you see here and the items of regalia belong to the Bronze era. But I think basically those were symbols of power, symbols of authority, both ritual and secular.
But is this a community museum?
So it becomes a community museum because it is community-based. The community is interested in what happens here. People come here. It's a living museum because people are involved in functions, in celebrations, in rites that take place at this place here. But I talked to His Majesty when I noticed that these things were getting spoiled, and he accepted to put them here on display for the benefit of younger people, especially school children, for the benefit of visitors, tourists, and for the benefit of serious scholars. The enthusiasm is sometimes overwhelming. Yesterday I had 47 young people coming in here. At the same time, we also disseminate values. There are cardinal values which are enshrined in this regalia. For instance, justice. The sword is a symbol of justice. Then it also promotes knowledge of where we've come from. I was taught at school that we could not have an iron and steel industry in Uganda because there is no coal. Yet here there are articles of steel, high quality tempered steel, as I'll show you. And how were these made? Here people used to burn iron ore with wet elephant grass, and they made high quality steel. These drums are my favorite, but I didn't have many favorites here. When I look at these two drums, I am fascinated by the workmanship. And this drum is used for processional music. When people are marching, when the kings are marching, when the armies were on the move, this is the drum they used. Everybody belongs here. Doesn't matter which part of the country you come from. Everyone will always have something to identify themselves with. The Madi would say, those are arrows. The Batoro would say, this is our crown. The Wanyabugama would say, this is ours. Everybody has something in here.
So when people come to this place, they are reminded. They are reminded and they feel happy. I see most of them who come here, they get out when they are happy. They are assured, they are reassured that the kingdom really once existed.
Northern Uganda has been ravaged by civil war for over 2 decades. This has negatively impacted on the cultural heritage of the Acholi people. This community museum seeks to revive, promote, and develop Acholi arts, crafts, and culture, reflecting the sheer resilience of culture.
As an artist, art has become part of my life, and looking at our culture, which inspires my art, I looked at a way of giving back to my community, and there was no any other better form I would give back to community than creating something that lasts forever.
Why does the museum focus on the war years?
The memory of the war is part of our culture already. I'm also looking at that as a section of the museum, but due to our limited space, we could not bring every aspect here. For example, we have to depict all that happened, whether it is ugly or not considered something good to look at, but it's part of our history. We need to record that so that the children come to know what happened in our past, where we are going. And eventually we are looking not to promote it, but to caution the young generation that something ugly happened here. Look, so we should always remember and avoid that, because the war cost a lot. Personally, I'm a victim of this war firsthand. For example, looking at a picture of a coin in here, so I ask you a question, why do you put coin in here? What has it got to do with our culture? But is underlying source of the war. So we need to document the ugly and the good and the bad. We have people who think we are here to make money. They don't see my vision. I'm actually spending money to have this museum pick up. Well, we need, the first thing is, that one comes with a challenge. We need a bigger space. And the community should understand what we're doing. There's some works that we get from the community, the old works. And the community says, why do you want the old one? I can give you the new one. So someone says, I've used this thing for a long time. Like I say, an object, I've used this mortar or grinding stone for a long time. I can't give it to you. All my children fed through this. So why do you want to keep it?
People, they have negative attitudes because they thought museum is a place where you collect things for the witchcrafts. I told them, I said, our museum is only to preserve our instruments. So if you come, or if somebody comes, we present it to them. And in most cases, our children, they don't know. Because we have been staying in camps for almost 21 years. Actually, the schools are ready and willing. Most of these students in the schools, they always hear of the museums. So they thought museum is only in Kampala, not in Kitgum. We as the Acholi people, actually, we are proud of our culture and we love it really.
Many Ugandans have long depended for their physical and spiritual health, and many still do, on what we call traditional medicine and spiritual resources. In Kyotera, Brother Anatoli has developed a museum with a focus on our wealth of knowledge, specifically in terms of medicine and religion, and to warn people against witchcraft. The museum started as a hospital providing herbal-based treatments. It still provides support to many patients.
Most of African culture is branded as static culture, as stagnant. And purposely, this museum is trying to show the world that African culture is not witchcraft. All these artifacts were brought by the community. Brother Anatoli is acting as a custodian.
So that's what I was inspired to take this museum, to collect all things which people have been fearing and bring them together here. And when we opened this museum, many people came from far away and they are willing to pay and learn. So now I see the future is bright.
This museum started as a medical, herbal medicine hospital. It's the medicine department which sustained this museum. So the medicine is got by the locals. Then Brother Anatoli process it and sell it and brand it for selling. Artifacts we have here, we are using them in our homes. We are familiar with them, but because now we are no longer using them, some people have reconstructed other meaning on them, that all the artifacts which you are using before are of witchcraft, which is not true. This is chibia. This was our traditional plate. But when you go in witchcraft, normally they use it to drink like herbs. People are discouraging people. Say that the chibia, when you put chibia in your house, it's dangerous. But this is our traditional plate. We must preserve it.
Brother azibudde abantu amaaso kikyalunga Kristo najja biki abantu bye bali beesiga era n'abakyabeesiga nenga bintu buntu ebitekebwako obukodi butali bumu okutuusa abantu obwongo bwabwe n'amaaso basobole okukkiriza ekyo bategeezezza.
Ekituufu abantu baali babuze nga babbibwa embage n'abasawo Abaganda bababba naye abalaga nti eri babalimba era n'abalaga obukodi bonna abasamize bwe bakozesa okubba abantu era abantu bangi nnyo bwe bajja okulambula bakyuse nnyo.
Naye nkubiriza abantu abanaasobola okujja bajje basobole nabo okuyiga ebintu bingi ebiri mu museum ate obubaka obwo bweyongerera ddala mu bantu n'okusaasaana kumpi mu nsi yonna.
I've been able to see objects that represent our heritage and to appreciate the Ganda culture. For instance, for the first time I've been able to see our traditional hall that was used by the Baganda, which is known as Akasimu. This museum is of value to the community around in several ways. One, it will give an opportunity to people, especially the younger generation, to be able to see what they have never seen. Because they say you cannot know where you are going unless you know where you came from.
To end our tour, we go near Mbarara, where the Igongo Culture Center has recently opened to the public to showcase the history and culture of southwestern Uganda. It is a large establishment with ancillary facilities run on a commercial basis.
We were very careful when we were launching this museum. We gave it a tagline of a center where the future meets the past, because we were aware that culture evolves, culture changes, but it should not change to the point of ignoring its roots. So for us, we are interested in the root, to make sure that the root, the foundation of our culture, from the human aspect, creative aspect, economic aspects, should form the root. And then we build on that as we face developments and evolution and metamorphosis of society. Very many people of all ages come to visit the center.
Children are the most important. We want children and young people of this region to know their history and their culture and traditions. That's our target.
When teachers visited Igongo, they were very, very much excited. And especially to our young ones, the students. So, like the students, they just read all that in history, but when they come to Igongo and they get the background, in their compound, for example, in their primary school, they would read about Ishekatabazi. On the other side, that monument of Ishekatabazi with his equipments. So it is really interesting.
We have over 30 groups which we have partnered with to supply crafts to this area as a way of promoting our culture to the outside world.
The enthusiasm we received was far beyond our expectation. Because as I told you, when we received the first ladies of Rwanda and Uganda coming to visit us, before we had even officially opened, we got excited. When we got big people wanting to sponsor clan panels in the museum, we were impressed. Activities there, and and what we have discovered is that many people now want to host their social events there because they associate them with culture. What we did was we put it up as a project that we think would attract people, but we provide services around it which would finance the museum itself. Because you cannot afford to charge people. It's not a hotel. You cannot charge people a lot of money because you want children to come and visit school children. You want anybody of whatever means to be able to visit the museum and learn.
Ninkunda ngumbirete nebera umuhati nebyanjye nk'ekishabwe ki ebiteeko omugamba enkuyo n'ebyanje kibo ekyo n'ebyanje ninye mbiheireyo abanyankore nimyenda ngu beije bagume batayaye barebe ebintu ebirumu barebe enganda zaabo barebe emitwe yaabo barebe ebikorwa by'engaro zaabo babyeje kandi bagume beije barambure.
Thanks to our community museums and to other committed individuals, we increasingly recognize that heritage is not only about animals in national parks. Our heritage lies in our people, in their identity, knowledge, skills, creativity, and history. We also increasingly recognize that we can harness our cultural wealth to celebrate our diversity, create employment, generate tourism revenue, and promote many other avenues for development. What message do the owners, managers of Uganda's community museums have for us?
To all the people of Bunyoro and also the people of Uganda, to love our culture, to love our diversity in order to mutually coexist.
So it is my humble appeal to people in this region to love their culture and not to destroy whatever cultural treasure they have. And also if they have time, they can also come to the Cultural Science Center Museum.
Think of one day and go to the museum, wherever it is. We have many community museums in Uganda, over 25 of them, wherever you are. Take time, go to that museum, see what they have to say. Support them in whatever you have to do. And encourage your children, of course.
If you see a country where the culture industry is not developed, then there's something fundamentally not right in the way it is developing. Because people, after satisfying basic needs of food, shelter, and security, the next place they want to go is to self-actualization, self-discovery, self-preservation. And you cannot do that unless you really, without using culture.
I was looking at the other cultural centers across the country. I have hope that it's no longer going to be a preserve of the state. But now you go to Mbarara, there is one, you go to Kabare, there is one, you go to Kapuchorwa, and you go to Karamoja, there is one. So you go to Fort Potro, there is one, you go to Hoima, there is one.